So we're talking about the heroes within. There's both the hero, which is the God self within us, and then there's many faces of all the different aspects of those heroes. And so we've talked about 4 thus far. So I'll just do those 4 real quickly. We have the innocent, and the gift of the innocent is trust, and they have dreams and optimism. So there's that innocent self that always knows our dreams and believes that they're possible. The orphan self, the orphan hero, is that hero within us that is able to feel into our wounds, stops running from them, hiding from them, or pretending they don't exist. Sometimes the innocent, just by itself, can be in denial. The orphan hero within us is willing to feel into those wounds, and from that we have the gift of empathy and interdependence. We start to feel a connection with other people with the softness of our heart. And then the other 2 archetypes. Archetypes are patterns that come from the divine, first cause, the blue space, the top, for those of you who are in Science of Mind. They transcend time and space. Civilizations come and go. These patterns continue to exist. So they're not of us. They're not humanly created. So we have the warrior. The warrior is that part within us that is able to have ideals and be able to stand up for them with being assertive. This is what I believe and this is what I stand for, and I'm willing to go out into the world and stand for my ideals, and I'm willing to stand for my ideals within my own being. Healthy boundaries. This is what I can love everybody, but here are my healthy boundaries. That's a really important responsibility that we have as we grow up, is to be able to have, stand for what we believe in and have our healthy boundaries. And the caregiver is those who care about ourselves and others and are able to reach out and nurture and take care of others. So it's the parents, it's the teachers, it's the coaches, it's all of us who are taking care of or helping anyone become more of themselves, as well as the actual caregiving, nursing. Often we're caregiving little ones or elders, or as people with broken feet. So those are the 4 aspects that Carol Pearson, the book we're using as the Awakening the Heroes Within. And she talks about these 4 as our ego self, and we need to really strongly develop all 4 of these to be healthy. Joseph Campbell, in his version, calls it the left path, that it's a strong anchoring point. Just for those of you who were here in July, I was talking about the 4 stages of consciousness. These 4 archetypes are like the first 2 stages of consciousness, a healthy first 2 stages of consciousness. But then today we're talking about the seeker and the lover. And I know all of you are here because you're all seekers. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. Because seeking is saying, I have this strong foundation, but there's something more. I feel like it's not enough. So often we there's 2 natural times that people tend to go on the seeking stage. That's adolescence. They've been raised by a family. They have a strong center, but to individuate, to find out their own voice, they go off into the world. They start thinking for themselves, pushing away, what do I think? And the other time is midlife. Once we've stabilized in our 20s and our 30s with our jobs, our relationships, we're raising kids, and then eventually our kids get a little bit old enough and we feel we've done our job long time in our relationship, we start asking, is this really the relationship for the rest of my life? Is this really the job that I'm in love with still after all these years? I have a little bit more freedom. My kids are older. I can make different choices now than when they were younger. So that becomes a natural time to start asking questions again. So those are natural seeking times. But it can happen anytime, and as we heard in the reading, it's also a crisis can happen. Someone can get cancer, and often people talk about their diagnosis of cancer or some health issue has been an incredible awakening, a moment, like life is more than this. And as she says in the reading, which I think is so brilliant, it's something the ego cannot answer. We have to go deeper and to say, well, what's really going on here, and really go beneath our cognitive rational mind. Ken Wilber refers to this as the trans-rational, that we're moving. We have our strong rational base, but the mystics, the soul calling, is taking us beyond what our rational mind can go. Or it could be, as she also said, a spiritual experience, an amazing awakening experience that opens us up and says, oh my gosh, my whole understanding of life is different than what I thought it can be. And obviously, it can be many of these different things. As she was giving the different examples, I was like, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we start connecting, and that's, I think, why like I said, I think most of us come here is because the traditional answers of things no longer work for us. We've had experiences, painful or positive or both, that have said there's more. So we start this seeking world, and I like that she says that the two main qualities that the seeker is looking for is autonomy, doesn't want to just do everything because everyone else is doing it, and authenticity. There becomes the seeking is like, but I like the group, like the teenager. I like my family, but it doesn't feel authentic to me. I got to find my own voice. In our 40s and 50s, I've created this great life, but it feels like there's something in me that isn't being expressed. There's an authentic part of my soul that isn't being fulfilled or shared out into the world, and I have to go find it. And again, that could happen anytime. Why we want to stay in touch, why these four qualities are really important, the four archetypes prior to that. If we haven't developed them in a healthy way, our autonomy, our seeking energy can hurt other people. When we go off, so we see that in adolescents. They're an easy target. Sorry, adolescents. I'm so glad we don't have any in our room right now. But they're beautiful, but sometimes they haven't mastered the four archetypes, so they go off and they push and they're mean to their parents, or they're angry, or they're sullen, or they're turning within because they're trying to find who they are, but they haven't learned to really nurture and develop the caregiving themselves. They maybe have not done a lot of healing work around their orphan side. So they haven't fully developed all four archetypes, so their seeking can be klutzy. But we can do that as adults. When people get divorces, sometimes there's a lot of pain there because of the anger. And that's because those four archetypes. So what I want to say is these four archetypes, innocent, orphan, warrior, caregiver, we always want to touch base to those, always. For all of us as seekers, where am I not taking care of myself? Where am I not setting healthy boundaries? Where am I not in touch with my own dreams and my own passions? So the more we are healthy in those areas, that seeking, it's still going to be difficult. When we start moving away from the norm, it upsets the apple cart. The group energy, whether it's a family, whether it's at work life, whether it's with your group of friends, whether it's with your community, when we start moving away, it impacts people. Every one of us is essential. None of us are irreplaceable. So when we make changes, it affects everybody. So it's just trying to do it a little bit more gracefully. The difference between a seeker and a wanderer, I love this, is a wanderer knows they're unhappy, but they haven't committed to seeking yet. So they're just sort of rejecting a lot of where they came from, but they're not really seeking either. A seeker knows that they're seeking for something. They may not, almost always when we seek, we're going into the unknown and we don't know what we're seeking, but we know we're seeking something. So we'll take classes. We'll talk with different people and get different people's perspectives. We'll read different books. We're seeking, we're actively participating. And that's different than just sort of zoning out, like just wandering around. So as a seeker, we've left something behind. We're seeking, but the hard part about seeking is we don't know always what we're seeking. The movie I used was The Razor's Edge. Has anyone seen either version of, there's two different versions of The Razor's Edge, and there's a book, The Razor's Edge, by Somerset Maugham. Has anyone seen the movies? Really? Well, yeah. See both of them. I like the older version. It's based on a Somerset Maugham book, and basically it's about a guy who is who is happy, carefree, comes from a somewhat wealthy world, and goes off and is as an ambulance driver in World War I, changes his whole perspective, and he cannot go back and lead life normally anymore. He can't pretend that everything is, his perception has been changed, that he's been pushed out of his comfort zone. So he goes on this long search for meaning, and it's clear he doesn't know what he's looking for because he's never been exposed to it, but he knows it's something. So The Razor's Edge is about walking, and it actually comes from a verse in the Upanishads about this search, but also participating in the world. It's a beautiful story. So you can feel his pain. But the reason why I thought more people would see it is because I saw it years ago, because it was it's like you know that the way people are telling you what this world is about and what's good to have, you know there's something more. There's got to be more to the story here. And people aren't answering it. The groups you're in aren't answering it, so you have to go off and find it. She said something in her reading that I had an experience this past week. So seekers, let me just say another story, since we'll skip over the razor's edge, is the Hebrews when they left Egypt. They're seeking the promised land. So one of the things when we begin, we might not know what that promised land is, but we feel it somehow. We know there's something more, and that's what the Hebrews were doing. They left slavery. They left imprisoning. We feel our lives are getting too constricted. We have to go out. What's interesting is they spent 40 years. Oh, Eat, Pray, Love is the other one. I know you all read it. Who's read? Yeah. I show you guys that one. Yeah, Eat, Pray, Love. And that's a relationship. She's unhappy in a relationship. She can't figure out why she keeps doing things wrong, getting messed up. So she goes off, again, not totally sure what she's looking for. But she starts to get answer because she's seeking. She's not just wandering. She's seeking. She's very clear there's something missing. And it's that promised land. Now, I personally resonated more with the Hebrew story because it took them 40 years. I mean, she did it like in a year. I'm like, that was really good. That was really fast. She got a lot of answers in that 1 year. But I feel like I've been wandering for almost, not quite 40 years, but pretty close. And I was thinking about the different things that pulled me. And one of them, I've never been to war, but like I've mentioned before, we watched the news every night growing up. And I just was never convinced that this was really a great place to live. I just could never buy into the American dream because I just saw too much pain every day. And so I thought, well, I could keep going after all this, but all this other stuff is happening over here. That seems very negative. So the answers didn't come easily for me. But she said something, and I just want to bring it up. It may or may not connect with you. She said that there's a part of the seeker that is looking for the return to the innocence, paradise lost. That there's a part of us, our childhood self, our childlike self, or infant self, still remembers what it is to be who we are. And we kind of remember that. And so the seeker is looking to re-engage that. Now, when she said that, when I read that, it's only like 2 lines, and I'm immediately just like, no, I don't think that's true for me. And so this past week, I've had a mentor who made his transition recently, Reverend Nirvana Gale, and he's a mentor, friend, big inspiration. And I don't think about him much during the day, but I've been up a couple hours at night, in the middle of the night, just him coming to me and all that he taught and all that he was. He was just a huge inspiration, and I was with this unconditional love. And in the night, everything is, you're not fully awake, you're not fully asleep, and suddenly I felt this connection with my child self, and it was like after all these layers were pulled away, and it was like, there it is. And I hadn't remembered what that felt like. I don't even remember maybe since I was a child. It was I was like, oh, that's why I'm here. And the thing about it was, when I had that moment of feeling it again, there was nothing missing. It wasn't like, oh, I need to develop this. It just was. And then I realized, I wasn't fully understanding. Paramahansa Yogananda has said that if we want to find our purpose, go back to our childhood, because in our childhood we don't have all the layers yet, and we know what we wanted to do then. So I'd always think about, I like to write, I was very physical, and then I realized all little kids are very physical, so that didn't give me a lot of information. But I was always trying different things, games I used to play, and I didn't play church or ministry. I mean, I have a friend who did. Like, she used to play church on Sunday, like being a minister. That never even occurred to me. And I know another guy who played being a bishop and a thing, that I'm not saying that's an impossibility. It never even crossed my mind. So I was always trying to figure out from my childhood, what is it that I wanted to do? And what I learned this past week, it wasn't about what I was doing as a child. It was about who I was. It was about reconnecting with who was I as a child. I'm like, that's the promised land. So I just want to invite you just to think about that this week as you're in your seeking energy. What are you seeking? That's really the theme of today's talk, is what is your promised land? Because this whole journey, the whole hero's journey, is about finding that promised land. That's one way to find it, is through getting in touch with that innocent self within you and who were you. But now we're going to talk about the lover. That's my favorite topic. So the lover. The seeker tends to go off and says, I need to separate myself. I don't want to be part of the group anymore. I want to think for myself. Autonomy and being authentic. For the lover, it's also being authentic, but it's also aliveness. And for the lover, that aliveness comes from connection. What do I love? So this is Joseph Campbell's Following Our Bliss. What is my bliss? And so we feel, and we've experienced, I think most of us have experienced in our culture today, there's a lot of that. What is my bliss? Follow your bliss and the money will follow. What is my creative expression? What am I here to give? What is my purpose? Financially, what is my bliss to experience? What is my bliss to experience in my health? What is my bliss to experience in my relationships? So in every area we start to say, I want to live a life of bliss, of love. And what she says is that we start to learn about who we are, more about who we are. To me, there's gifts all along the way by what we love, what we're in love with. Well, I'm just going to cut to the chase. Okay. This was a challenge for me because I could not find what I loved. I mean, I had a job. I talk about working in a psychiatric hospital. I was in heaven. I loved it. But it's just like a relationship. It was great. And then about 2 or 3 years in the line, it just became a job. I liked it, but it wasn't and the same thing happens when we fall in love. It's really exciting at first. Our heart's open. That's why we want it all the time, right? That's why we want to be in love, because we want the energy and the vitality and the joy, and we feel our cells are vibrating and we're all very happy. But we also know, what do we hear about romantic love? It dies away. Then you have to go into the mature love. You have the ecstatic, happy love, and then the mature love, which isn't always so happy and alive all the time. So then you have a lot of workshops on how to reignite the love, how to feel that love again, because either that or you're going to have to go fall in love with somebody else. But somehow we want to keep that love going. So I'm going to talk about Eros. I'm going to talk about it from what Carol Pearson offers, and then also from my own perspective, which is combined with what Carol Pearson is talking about. So Eros, so we usually hear about 4 kinds of love. Platonic love, which is friendship love. Familial love, which is love of family. Eros, which is usually defined as romantic love. And agape love, which is God's unconditional love. At least that's how I always learned about it. From Carol Pearson's perspective, the Eros, this romantic love, has gotten a little bit lost in the spiritual traditions, especially in the major religions, because the major religions became very patriarchal. And she was looking at the pagan religions prior to the more patriarchal religions, and there was a lot of feminine goddess energy. And you still have it in Hindu with Shakti and Shiva making love. But she said it was very erotic, and it was joyful, and it was everywhere. Everywhere, these dualities were coming together, and you would feel the aliveness. And what happened, what she said, is with all of the patriarchal religions, very little of the feminine was left. So there was very little eros in our spirituality. We lost the eros. So you couldn't have that dynamic aliveness that in our spirituality. There's a lot of meditate. Om. I meant to do ohms today. Very sort of vibrating, peaceful, spaciousness, but the passion and the love in so many of our traditions, if you read them, you want to be dispassionate, you want to be unattached, you want to be that cool, calm, peace-filled, unmovable presence, but you don't want the passion, and that's why women were often like danger zones, because we evoked passion. We evoked fire. As David Data said, feminine energy is very much like Hawaii. It's beautiful and luscious and voluptuous, and it erupts. And he said, we like it for certain things, but other things we're like, shh. But the beauty of having that incredible voluptuousness and fruitfulness married to this incredible, strong, stable presence, that's the excitement of what spirituality can be. And sometimes we miss that. So the movie I used for this one, how many people have seen Dangerous Beauty? Yes. 3, 4. It is a great movie. It's about a courtesan in Venice back in the 15 or 1600s. But it's really not about, I mean, it is about that. But the beauty of, so she has a choice. She doesn't have a dowry to marry the man that she loves, so she has a choice of either becoming a nun or a courtesan. And being a nun, which is losing all her femininity, completely has no interest, so she becomes a courtesan. And she doesn't like it at first. But what her mother tells her, who was also a courtesan, don't fall in love with the person, fall in love with love. And so they teach her the ways of being a woman, of the feminine nature. And she was in love with love. And what she found was incredible. She said, I learned to embrace this. She didn't tell me it could be so good. She embraced sensuality. And it's interesting that she's a courtesan because Carol Pearson's perspective is that by losing eros and spirituality, the feminine spirituality often gets into pornography or courtesan, unhealthy shadow ways because it's not allowed to come out normally, this feminine sensuality. What's interesting about the actress who plays the character, I remember watching the movie and thinking, she is gorgeous. She really was beautiful. And I just didn't think there's anyone who I'd seen more beautiful. And then I saw her in other movies. And she was very attractive. I mean, she's very pretty, but nothing like she was in that movie. And I thought because in that movie, she's playing a character who's in love with love, who's full of love and eros, and it's coming through in her as an actress. Like you feel like she became more beautiful as she was in this energy of being in love with love. And that's eros, is to be in love with love. And so she gives a speech at the very end of pretty much the end of the movie. And she's being tried for being a witch, for seducing all these men. Not just for being a prostitute, but for being a witch with her seductive powers. And what she says is that the ecstasy that she knows with men, with flesh, is the best prayer she could ever imagine. That she was confessing, and she said, if I found so much joy that through our union, we moved past our bodies. We were in our bodies to move past our bodies into this other world, to a place that had no flesh. And it was ecstatic and passionate. And that's my way of life. That was the life that was given to me, and I embraced it. And I loved it. And basically, she wasn't going to apologize for it. And it's such a beautiful speech because it's not about Veronica Frank, who was a real person, who did get to write poetry and get to read books because she was open to her feminine sensuality. Women with high dowries were not allowed to do any of that. It's about the love of God. Being able to the way Carol Pearson puts it is, it's visceral. It's sensual. The love of God is something we feel. And so I'm going to talk about my search. I said my search has been about for 40 years because that's what I was looking for. So to bring a little Ken Wilber clarity, Ken Wilber is an American integral philosopher. And he said most spirituality is either ascension or descension. Ascension is you want to wake up to your oneness in God, and he calls that eros. He uses eros in a different way than I'd been used to. Eros was the love that wants to wake up and just, I want to know my oneness with God. Agape love is breaking that love and bringing it down into form, into our creative expression, into our work life, into our relationships, into our finances, into our physical health. So as I was on this spiritual journey and in the New Thought journey, I loved oneness, and every New Thought teaching was about descension. I didn't have a way to articulate it at the time. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't filling me up, why it wasn't giving me what I wanted. And I was at a church actually called Agape, and it was very much shine your light, give your dreams, express your deepest gifts. The classes, let's make our life better, our finances, our health, let's do that. And all of that is great. I am not putting that down. I also grew up in a family like that, so it's not that it was bad. I just felt like I was saturated in it. And that's fine, but I wasn't finding the other thing. I didn't have a name for it at the time, but it was the eros. And I think that's why when Dangerous Beauty came out, I saw it like 10 times. Because I couldn't figure out, I didn't want to be a courtesan. I didn't want to go around sleeping with a lot of men. That wasn't the answer. But I was trying to figure out, what is it about? There's something in there that I'm feeling that I don't feel at church, that I don't feel in my spiritual life, and I can't put my finger on it, but I long for it. I had these other two teachers, Paramahansa Yogananda and Shunryu Suzuki. They're about eros. They gave their entire life to God, and what they teach was not about how to, although Yogananda would bring in new thought about how to make a better life, but his primary thing was meditate, 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 because there's this whole other world out there. Open up, wake up, ascend, ascend, ascend. Shunryu Suzuki was in a monastic priest life since he was 11 or 12 years old. His whole life was about waking up, waking up. It wasn't about fulfill your dreams, so there was a max in the seeking. So seeking and lover goes well together. So many seekers went to the East. We know that, right? From the 60s and 70s. Went to India, went to Southeast Asia, learning Hinduism and Buddhism. More recently, we have a lot more seekers going into Sufism, which is the mystical aspect of Islam, or the Kabbalah, which is the mystical aspect of Judaism. So there's a lot of seeking, and it's leaving the Christian religion because... And even New Thought, I see even New Thought ministers who go off to India because they're seeking something that we're not giving. And what that is it's the eros. It's that passionate love that's visceral and sensual that we crave and hunger for, and that we can have all the perfect relationships and jobs and everything else, but those come and go, and they're still not the thing itself. And I think there's a deep, deep longing for the thing itself. We are missing eros in our spirituality, in our American spirituality. So in my seeking, I found eventually these monks on Mount Athos, as many of you know, and fell in love with them. They're also about eros. It was the first time I saw it in the Christian religion. Now, David Data says there's no such thing as falling in love. That actually, when we feel like we're falling in love, what we're actually doing is we're feeling familiarity with somebody. They remind us of something that's very familiar to us as children, which is why all our parental issues often come up in our relationships. We don't fall in love with someone who we don't feel any connection with. So I love Yogananda. I love Shunryu Suzuki, as you all know. I usually bring him up every talk. I love Sufism. I mean, who's the poet that you see quoted the most? It's got to be Rumi. Because people are wanting that, but there's so little of it. But when I found Christianity, it was like coming home. It was familiar. It's not that it's better. It's not that it's saying something that's more clearer than what Shunryu Suzuki is saying or Yogananda. It was like coming full circle to my home. So when I'm reading about these Christian monks, there was one guy who was an atheist most of his life, and around 70, he had a mystical experience, and he hungered for God, and he went to the monastery, and he said, I can't do all this other stuff. I just need to pray 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's all I want to do is pray, pray, pray. And that's what he did. And he became this glorious being. I'm not saying I want to pray that's the only thing I want to do is pray for 24 hours, 7 days a week, but I could feel it. It's like, it was in his whole being. I want to pray. I want to give myself to God over and over and over and never stop. That's the eros that we're missing and longing for. And to me, that starts to point to our promised land. That eros of that ascension, that thing in us that's seeking. Yes, we want to be able to express ourselves and have a job where we get to express our highest good. Yes, we want to have a financial flow that is graceful and allows our life to flow harmoniously. Yes, we want perfect health. Yes, we want relationships that see the highest and best in us and bring out the best. Yes, 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 yes to all of that. And I think there's something even deeper that we're seeking, and that is the eros, this incredible, not just conceptual, not just peaceful, but a passionate love affair with God. I journal every single day for decades now, and I started with Jesus because I needed a form. It couldn't be just a concept. I needed a form that I could see, that I could feel a visceral connection to. Now it's been so many years, I don't even do that much. I just feel the connection and I just start writing. But every day I write to that place of love, to that vortex of love, to that relationship of love. And I hear and feel and receive that love in return. That's as important to me. That connection, that eros, that divine love affair is as important to me as meditating every day. It's as important as doing a treatment every day. That I need to be in love, in a passionate love affair with God. Why we exercise every day isn't just for our health, but is to physically give ourselves to God every day. I think why so many people like yoga is because there's a conscious connection that I'm doing this for my spiritual growth. But whatever we do, whatever physical exercise, I don't care if it's just walking, I give my physical body to God. Everything becomes a love affair of God, so it's tangible and visceral in our life. You with me here? Seeking and the lover. We are all lovers. And there is a divine beloved who loves us as much as we love it and is longing for us to love it as much as we are longing to find it. It's wanting to find, it's coming together. Deep seeking deep and deep answering deep. So my invitation this morning is to find your promised land. That doesn't mean, I don't mean you're going to achieve it, but get some sense of what is your promised land. So whether it's going back to when you were a child, to that innocent self, reconnecting with something in you that knew that you knew who you were before paradise was lost. Finding out, what do I love? Where is the way I look at it, if you think about people who walk this planet Earth, not who are you in love with, because I think that gets our romantic karmic patterns, but think about people on this earth who you are in awe of. Who, and hopefully there's more than one, who has walked this planet that you just go, wow, just wow. If you can't think of anyone, I would say that's because you're not connected to that innocent child, innocent hero within you. So I would invite any of us who don't feel any awe around any person that's walked this earth, is because children naturally feel awe and wonder is their natural state. I was with 2 twins yesterday who weren't even 2. Their fascination with my crutch was unbelievable, and it lasted for a really long time. And they're just in awe and wonder of everything. So if you can't find awe and wonder for anyone on this earth, it's because you've lost a little connection with your innocent self. But when you think about who you're in awe of, that's going to tell you a lot about your promised land. And especially if you have more than one person. So today I used the example of Reverend Nirvana, who I am in definite awe of. And I use Shunryu Suzuki, who I am definite awe of. Their styles are so, so different. I mean, loud, singing, talking all the time, quiet, peaceful, totally different styles. And yet, my heart knows exactly the thing that I am in awe of is both of them, is their incredible, incredible whole soul, all body, everyday devotion to God. And it radiated and pulsated from their beings in different ways. But I know, I was just thinking this morning in meditation, what if they met? And I'm like, oh, that would be the best meeting ever. So that's why it's nice to know about at least two different people that you're in awe of, because it's not the style. We don't want to get caught up in the human style, but the essence of why are you in awe of them and why are you in awe of this person? Where is the connection? That's our promised land. So as we're in the seeker and lover is about discovering our authenticity, becoming autonomous, finding our own voice, not anyone else's voice, not my parents' voice, not my community's voice, not my minister's voice, not this book by teacher's voice, anyone else. It's my voice. Autonomous, authentic, and alive. That's the promise of the promised land. Let's pray. And I feel the promised land right here and right now. It has already been given before we even ask. So we begin with just acknowledging and recognizing through words and through concepts and forms that which is beyond all concepts and forms. These words are just fingers pointing at the moon. And what these words remind us is that there is only one power, one presence. One power, one presence, one love. There are no borders. There are no walls. There's no us and them. We meet in the fields beyond right doing and wrongdoing. And we commune in this ever-present oneness that is the source of everyone in this room. There is no separation in this room right now. We feel the physical, unique expressions beside us, to the left and to the right, in front of us and behind us. But all of us are sourced by that one life. Our beginning and our ending is the same. And it is magnificent. It is beyond words. It is ecstatic, passionate love that has birthed itself into form as everyone in this room. How grateful I am that this room has no borders, that this room includes this country, this planet, the cosmos of all time and all dimensions. That within us there are no boundaries. We are unlimited beings of love, of passion, of aliveness, of fertility, of ecstatic union, heaven and earth, adult and child, dark and light, male and female, good and bad. We are the ecstatic coming together of all seeming opposites. We are the marriage right here and right now. And today I'd like to do something a little different. I want us to feel into people who embody that ecstatic union, who embody that sense of awe, of the transcendent, of something more than we are right now, that embody that promised land. And this is a prayer of gratitude. I want us to call out their names in gratitude for their existence on this planet. So I invite you all now to call out all the names of those people who you hold in awe in your heart, in your mind, and in your soul. Feels so good to see and give thanks. We give thanks for the power and the presence of these awesome beings who have walked in our life, and knowing that even as we see in awe that who and what they are, we are remembering with awe who and what we are. We are the glorious light of heaven on earth. For all of this good and more than words could ever say, I just say thank you. Thank you, Mother, Father, infinite, beloved one. I release this word now. I completely let it be. And I invite us all to say together, and so it is.